All right, so if you're listening right now on the podcast or on air, we apologize because this portion of it is going to be very video. It's going to be the most unconventional way we've started an interview, but I need to do this properly. So, Joe, give me 1 second. Hold on. Let's take this off. Let's put this on. We
I love it.
exchanged pleasantries. Let me put my headset so I can hear you. We exchanged pleasantries,
That's
but I didn't let
beautiful.
you know. Born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and as a
Fantastic.
former offensive lineman, we have to do this properly. Let me move this mic really quick. In honor of you getting becoming a finalist for the Hall of Fame and the shoe in to become a Hall of Famer. Here we go, Joe. Here we go.
Woo, woo.
There
Love
it
it,
is.
man. That's beautiful.
Joe Thomas joining us here on 1140 The Bet. Perfect timing for us. Like I said yesterday, the finalists came out, your first year of eligibility, and you are a finalist for the Hall of Fame. So kind of talk me through the phone call, your reaction, and how emotional it was to finally get this call.
Yeah, the information that I finally got into the Hall of Fame finalists, which I say finally, it's my first time eligible, but it just seems like the process to get here has taken a while, because I've been
Honestly,
getting asked
yeah.
about this for a while, right? Like all summer, people are talking about it because they knew this would be the year that I was eligible. And so they get the nominees and they cut it down to the semifinalists. And then I'm like, come on, let's go already. So it was really special because I think cutting it down to 15 to that final 15 really made it real. Where when the list was a lot bigger, it didn't feel all that real yet. But having a chance to be a finalist and seeing those other names on the list and thinking about how great those guys were and thinking about playing against some of those guys like Dwight Freeney and DeMarcus Ware. And it became very, very surreal in that moment.
No, absolutely. And now that you say it, like me thinking, like, damn, it's been a long time. I just think because now you're in the media and you're doing your thing, podcast, NFL Network. We see your face and we hear from you so much. We just figured, oh, he's been retired forever. But no, you went straight into it and made that transition. And you talk about thinking about Dwight Freeney and all the other names on the list too. Was there a moment of reflection when you got the call and kind of had a moment to sit down to kind of reflect on all your playing days with Cleveland?
Yeah, that's exactly one of the cool things that happens when you do get an honor like this, right? You immediately reflect back on, all right, this is really cool where I am, but how did I get here? Who are all those people that had a big influence on my life to put me down this path, right? Because it could have been any path, right? Like at any moment, you could have taken a different route and made a different decision and you wouldn't be here. And I think first and foremost, like my dad and how influential he was on me, inspiring the love of sports within me. He was like my hero as a kid, still is to this day. He's the person that I was given a lot of those values from, of like hard work and dedication and showing up for your teammates. And so I certainly wouldn't be a Hall of Fame finalist without him. But then I also think like seventh grade, I started playing football. Coach Pinch was my coach, Coach Driscoll in eighth grade, and then on to high school with Coach Seinold, and like all the different offensive line coaches I had through high school and then college and then playing in the NFL and being in the same spot for 11 seasons. I'm probably one of the few guys that had 6 different head coaches in one spot. I had 2 owners. I had 9 offensive coordinators, a number
Do
of
we know the quarterback
offensive line
number?
coaches.
Do we know the
I
QB
had
number?
20. I just saw it today because somebody sent me the full list of Hall of Famers and they had my stuff in there. And the number 2 thing on there was, number 1 was 10 Pro Bowls. Number 2 is like block for 22 different quarterbacks. So it is kind of fun. It's fun, but it's also traumatizing a little bit, reflecting back on my 11 seasons in Cleveland that resulted in 0 playoffs.
Well, I do want to say, and you brought up your dad, which I think might be the answer to the question I'm about to ask you, but thinking about your career and your situation and the lack of team success, I think a lot of people can, in their lives, take it to like, how many people can work somewhere that they truly enjoy, whether it's the coworkers, the situation, this, that, and the third. But for you to constantly, produce and come out with this quality and be such a great player, like, how hard was it to get motivation every year when you're like, this might be another 5-11, 3-13 type season?
Yeah, it was a grind on a daily basis, but I think it's a grind for everybody, no matter the success or failure of your team, because the NFL season is just tough. Like your bodies are beat up. There's a ton of pressure on you every single week. But for me, I felt blessed because as I reflected in the last week on kind of my 11 seasons in the NFL, I thought of all the great players I played with, not only on the field, like their great performances, but them as great human beings. And I think the people within the Browns organization, the trainers, the equipment staff, the front office people, like it was always really, really good people that I got a chance to work with. And I think that's what allowed you to get through some of the drudgery and the misery of the bad seasons.
And we're gonna go back and ask you a couple more questions on your playing career, but I want to transition really quick to the Raiders and everything going on here in Las Vegas on this rainy day in Las Vegas, the kind of match the season that the Raiders have had. Before we get into Derek Carr specifically, what's been your outlook and your thoughts so far of this season of disappointment?
Well, it's been so surprising to me, right? Because with all the turmoil that the Raiders had last season, they ended up having a really good season. And so you would think with stability, bringing in Josh McDaniels, guy's been a head coach, been an offensive coordinator forever. Seemingly, he's going to bring in a good offense. I've got a ton of respect for Derek Carr. I was like, man, they're going to be a good squad. I think that was what everybody in the NFL kind of expected. And to see them perform and play and kind of fracture the way they did, it was a shock to me. And I can't put my finger on it. I think defensively, obviously not a good defense, not a very good offensive line. So it makes it hard. But look, when Josh McDaniels was in New England, usually their defense was solid, but sometimes they had terrible offensive lines. And typically with a good run game and a great, maybe the best receiver in the NFL and Devontae Adams, and the ability to get rid of the ball quickly with Derek Carr, like usually that can overcome a lot of that stuff. So it's kind of a head scratcher to me why they weren't able to overcome that more often.
Yeah, and the result of Derek Carr's worst pro career, and you bring up that offensive line. Obviously Josh Jacobs is having a hell of a year that no one expected. Obviously, he had motivation. He didn't get his player option. He's about to become a free agent and probably get paid. But can you explain to me, as an offensive lineman, explain to me as a fan how that works, where we've had 15 different variations of that offensive line throughout the season. It's not very good, but Josh Jacobs is having the best season of his career.
Well, it really points to how good Josh Jacobs is. I look at the PFF stats every week as I'm getting ready for the slate of games on the weekend, and Josh Jacobs is always one of the guys grading out at the top of that list, which is amazing when you don't have an offense that really throws the ball all that efficiently, and you don't have a good defense, so your defense is getting scored on a lot. That means you're not getting a lot of opportunities to run the ball typically. And then when you have kind of a shaky offensive line that's had a lot of shuffling, like usually your blocking's not very good. So that says this dude's been doing it by himself the entire year. And I'm not a big believer in drafting a running back high in the NFL draft, but Josh Jacobs is sort of making me question that philosophy because he's been an absolute beast and probably one of the two lone bright spots. Or maybe I'll give you three. Max Crosby, he's kind of a stud too. But Devontae, Max, and Josh Jacobs, sort of your bright spots that you're hopefully going to lean on as you're trying to build some optimism into the 2023 season.
And I think everyone in Las Vegas is awaiting your answer on this question. The topic of conversation for the past 2 weeks, just in general, what have you thought of, I guess, the Derek Carr fiasco of benching him? He leaves the team. Rumors that McDaniels in the front office didn't really believe in him, so they left him out to dry. Like all this drama surrounding Derek Carr. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I hate that because the quarterback is the most important position in all of professional sports. So you got to make sure you feel really, really good about that position. And you got to make sure more than any other positions in the front office or the coaching staff that the quarterback's abilities are aligned with the head coach's ability and offense, and that they believe in one another, and that the front office is totally on board with everything that happens. And that with the first signs of stress and fracture, like all of a sudden those pieces don't disintegrate and people start stabbing each other in the back, because there's going to be adversity in the NFL season. And to see it kind of happen the way it has, I don't know Derek Carr very well. I played in a few Pro Bowls with him, and I know people that know him and say he's a great dude. And so I'm really cheering for him. And it makes me feel bad for him that, yeah, he hasn't played well this season, but it seems like the situation he was put into was almost an unwinnable situation. And I do wonder what's going to happen in the future. I think for him to step away from the team the last 2 weeks was probably good for both sides, was probably good for him because he didn't want to be around being the scout team quarterback. Like, that's not good for him, especially when he's trying to figure out what next season looks like. Maybe it's in Las Vegas, maybe it's somewhere else. And it's probably better for the team not to have that distraction around. But also from the team standpoint, the reason he's not playing is largely because they don't want him to get hurt because they don't have to pay him. So you probably don't want him getting hurt in practice, throwing reps on scout team to scout team receivers.
I was kind of surprised, when that happened. Josh Jacobs spoke to the media and said, hey, we assumed something was up because he wasn't in the locker room, but Derek Carr kind of didn't say anything to his teammates, didn't have like a final moment. Is that something like as fans, like it's status quo because there's so many transactions that dudes don't get to talk in front of the team, but also Derek Carr's been there for 9 years. Like, does that look bad on the front office that they didn't give him that moment? Or it's like, yo, we're in the middle of the season. We got too much things to do. We can't just get you on in front of everybody to say goodbye.
Yeah, you could write a book about this season for the Las Vegas Raiders. So much drama there, so many things to unpack. And I do wonder myself why the decision was made. Where did it come from? Because somebody in that triumvirate between general manager, head coach, and ownership said, we got to bench Derek Carr. And then the other people got on board with it, either because that's their job to go along with what the owner says, or because of some other factors and some other influence. So you wonder who made that decision and who felt like it would be best for him to be away from the team. Maybe that came from Derek, but I would be surprised by that because I feel like Derek's a good soldier and that maybe it was brought to him by somebody else. And he said, okay, I understand it's probably the best for all parties to not be around these last couple of weeks of the season. But even in that case, even if you don't believe in Derek, which that's the rumor that's coming out here, you wish, because he has been the face of the franchise for a while and because he's so well liked in that locker room, that you at least give him an opportunity to kind of explain why it makes sense for him to step away and give him an opportunity to say, hey, this isn't about me anymore. It's about you guys. I want to give you guys the best opportunity to put your best foot forward these last couple of games of the season for the Las Vegas Raiders this season, but also for next season. And then for you guys that aren't going to be in Las Vegas, you have an opportunity to finish the season the right way so that you have a chance to pick up with another team this offseason. And I think that could have been a powerful message. And I think it was an opportunity lost for the Raiders and for Derek Carr.
And the Tom Brady rumors are ramping up again, which it seems like it's been happening for the past 3 seasons. To me personally, I don't think he's the answer, whether it's next year or the future. But there's some people here in Las Vegas and Raider Nation that are willing to sell the house, sell the farm rather, to get him to be a part of this team for next year. To me, the defense has too many holes. He's not going to fix everything. What's your opinion on Tom Brady coming to Las Vegas? Is he a cure-all?
So there's 2 parts to this. One is Tom Brady playing defense next year, because when I look at the Raiders, they're 30th in sacks. They're 31st in taking the football away. They're 28th in red zone. And they're 29th in pass defense. Those are not winning numbers. So until you fix the defense, it almost doesn't really matter who you have at quarterback. They're not going to fix the problem. But then also, I know that it's a natural fit between Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady. They're so close. They spent so many years together in New England. But Brady's gone through a tough season in Tampa Bay this year. And some of it because his offensive line stinks. Some of it's because the defense had a lot of injuries. But I don't think he personally, as much as he loves Josh McDaniels, wants to come out here and play another 500 season because his defense isn't very good. Where I think he's got another option potentially in San Francisco, where that's his hometown, where he might want to go out there and have an opportunity to finish in his hometown with Kyle Shanahan and a defense that's tops in the NFL that right now is making a run with Brock Purdy as a quarterback. So I know that it's fun reading the tea leaves and try to connect the dots, but I think from Brady's standpoint, if he leaves Tampa Bay and continues to play, he's going to want to play for a Super Bowl. And I don't think the Las Vegas Raiders are Super Bowl contenders next season, no matter who their quarterback is.
Mark Davis is clenching his fist as he listens to this. Before we get you out of here, Joe Thomas joining us from NFL Network, a finalist for the upcoming class in the NFL Hall of Fame. So let's go down memory lane really quick with 2 questions. What is your favorite QB that you played for out of the 20 plus that we talked about earlier?
So my best friend that I played with in the NFL was Alex Mack. He was my center. Probably my next best friend was Colt McCoy. he's our quarterback in Cleveland for a few years, and he's still balling down in the desert there in Arizona. So I love playing with him, but I think from just a general great teammate perspective, Josh McCown, he's the guy that always pops into my head. Dude played forever. By the time he was in Cleveland, he was almost a coach on the field. And he was old enough to be, I think he was older than some of our coaches. Actually, it was funny. One of our last seasons, I think it was Jordan Cameron was our tight end. And Josh has a daughter who's like almost Jordan's age. So she came to practice and started telling her dad, like, hey, your teammate's pretty hot. And I don't think he liked that too much. He's like, my daughter should not be old enough to think my teammates are hot.
Exactly.
So he was a great guy, though, just a student in the game. He was totally team first. He had an unbelievable amount of experiences and stories, a great communicator. And when he got his opportunities, he laid it all on the line for the team. Just a fabulous team. Had everything you'd ever want.
And being in the AFC North, of course, the Ravens, the Steelers have always had pretty good defenses, dominant defenses at times. What is the one defense or player that caused you in your career to prep more week of, whether it's in the watching tape, in the gym? What player or defense was that?
Yeah, so AFC North, it was James Harrison twice a season. It was Terrell Suggs twice a season. But, I had a good handle on how to deal with those guys because you play them so much.
Yeah.
The guys that were the toughest that caused me the most stress was DeMarcus Ware and Dwight Freeney, because I only played those guys like once every 4 years. And obviously completely dominant pass rushers that changed the game, how they did things. Dwight Freeney with that spin move. Nobody did it like that before he did. And now you see a few guys in the NFL, but nobody has ever come to the level that he did with that devastating spin move. He wrecked shop on the best tackles in the NFL. DeMarcus Ware, his get off, his power, his ability to dip and rip and lean reminds me a lot of Myles Garrett. DeMarcus is a finalist with me this year, his second time on the ballot. I bet you he gets in. And Dwight Freeney, his first time on the ballot, and I bet he gets in this year too. So two guys that I hated seeing on Sundays, but hope to see in Canton this summer, 2023.
I just realized you're about to bring Browns Nation to Canton right down the hallway.
Street,
we love to see it. Joe Thomas, thank you. First off, congratulations, and thank you for all your coverage and everything you do. Thanks for joining us from NFL Network, and of course, a Hall of Fame finalist of this year. Joe, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.